And there are several questions at this stage. Will the situation escalate or calm down? Is there merit in the contention that radical elements infiltrated a students' movement and the situation could deteriorate in the days and weeks ahead? What's the latest now in Bangladesh? Joining me on this special broadcast, our Ambassador Shamsher Mubin Chaudhry, former Foreign Secretary of Bangladesh. Lieutenant General KJS Dhillon, General Tiny Dhillon, is former Director General of India's Defence Intelligence Agency. Also with me is Ambassador Anil Trigunayat, former ambassador who served extensively in Bangladesh. But I quickly want to cut across to India Today's Foreign Affairs editor Geeta Mohan, joining us with the latest. Geeta, do we know what next with Sheikh Hasina? Is she staying over in India, or was this a pit stop for her to fly to Europe?
Well, it was certainly a pit stop, and now we are given to understand that she's going to be here for a while longer, but certainly not a long stay, because they are looking at what her final destination is going to be. And Gaurav, we were discussing it earlier as well. There is a Labour government in the United Kingdom. We'll have to wait and see whether if they'll be giving her clearance or not. And I say this because it comes at a time when UK itself is boiling. There's the immigrant Muslim issue, and then of course there is this entire camp which is anti-Sheikh Hasina, questioning her on her government, governance, human rights questions, so on and so forth. And there's this entire Pakistan, pro-Pakistan, Bangladeshi political establishment within London who also are now trying to stop any move of the government really accepting her request for an asylum. So I suppose that could be one of the reasons why it's taking longer than usual. But this is certainly not her final destination. She's had a dinner. She's here. There have been a lot of call-ons. There have been a lot of important meetings. But we are told that she will be leaving India and moving to London is what is supposedly her final destination, if not.
So we were told that plan A is London, plan A is United Kingdom, plan B is Finland. Geeta, stay with me and join in at any point of time. Ambassador Chaudhry, what's the situation in Bangladesh right now, sir? Are things shaping up? Are things calmer now? What do you see happen in the near future?
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Nice to see Geeta and Anil, my good friends from a long time, one journalist and one former Indian diplomat. Let me just correct one thing. You said 150 people have been killed during the students' protest last of the week. Actually, the figures are at least 300.
Sir, I said 300. My apologies if you heard 150. 300 is what we said. Go on, sir.
Yeah, okay. So what is happening now, as you report, that the former Prime Minister is in Delhi. Initially, we understood from your sources, Indian media sources, that she's going to make a short step. But now, as you say, she's staying a little longer. In the meantime, we also heard that the National Security Advisor, Mr. Ajit Doval, has already met her, and maybe other Indian leaders will also meet. And of course, the Gandhi family, which has been close to Sheikh Hasina for a very, very long time. Where she goes is, for us, the main question in Bangladesh is what happens now in Bangladesh. Where do we go from here? Now that an unpopular Prime Minister has had to leave the country, in the face of protests and in the face of other factors. I mean, the police stopped, initially the police started killing the protesters in great numbers and very brutally. Then the student wing of the Awami League resorted to absolute criminal activities against the protesters, beating up women, girls, students, female. They merciless beating up them. So this all then gelled as the government took time for the courts to decide. The government should have moved much earlier. The government took a long time. And I think what was also very, what sparked a lot of anger among the new generation who are youths, 54 years, they're not even born in Bangladesh, was born in 1971, to call them Razakars or to kind of identify them as children of Razakars. Razakar is a very bad tag that Geeta and Anil would, of course, know. That erupted into a much bigger thing. And then the pent-up anger over the last 10 years of total decay of democracy in Bangladesh, no accountability, unbridled corruption, cronyism, inflation, price rise, the gap between the rich and the poor, and certain things, of course, which over the government had no control, like the Russia's war in Ukraine, which affected our energy supply chain.
How much of this is organic and how much of this was orchestrated with outside forces at play is an issue that is being talked about extensively, and I'll come to you for that, Ambassador. But Janil Dhillon, what does this mean for India, not just at our borders, but for India-Bangladesh relationship in the long run?
Thank you, Gaurav. And we have been observing or getting media reports about what's happening in Bangladesh. First, I'll talk about the strategic aspects, and later on we can take it further. See, in our neighborhood, we all got independence together, more or less the same time, starting with Afghanistan, Pakistan, Maldives, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Myanmar. India has been the pillar of stability over the last 77 years. Whereas every other country in the neighborhood had their brushes with the dictatorship or the democracies or the sham democracies. And that is why we can pat ourselves in spite of our internal fault lines. That is one. Now coming to the strategic implications of what happened today. See, India neighborhood, starting with Afghanistan again, Pakistan, Maldives, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, they all have Chinese influence in a big way. And we can also talk about Nepal for some time. Now, if India is all around surrounded by the countries which are under the influence of China, Bangladesh under Sheikh Hasina was one country which was pro-India and had a democratically elected Prime Minister and democratic government. Now, with the ouster of Ms. Sheikh Hasina, this country also is going to go under the influence of Jamaat-e-Islami, ISI, Pakistan, and in turn, China. Now, that's not a good sign from the military strategic point of view. We have no immediate military implications, so to say, but the implications are there may be Awami League supporters who will be pressurized in the new regime, and they might cross over towards Indian side, as what happened in 1971. The refugee crisis, the asylum seeker crisis might erupt, and in addition, what was happening before Ms. Hasina came to power, the Northeast insurgent groups were given a safe havens in Bangladesh, and with ISI influence increasing, that might also increase, which has security implications for our northeastern states.
Before I bring in Ambassador Trigone, let me bring in Ambassador Chaudhary from Bangladesh once again. Ambassador, is that an apprehension that Jamaat-e-Islami or radical elements may have ridden piggyback on a student's agitation and popular anger against Sheikh Hasina, and in the days, weeks and months ahead, the situation could take a turn for a worse and Chinese influence could increase in your part of the country, sir?
Well, this is all a matter of speculation, and speculations have a 50-50 chance of going wrong or going right. Now, the fact is that what General Dhillon said, that Sheikh Hasina was a democratically elected Prime Minister. This is where I find serious exception to. The last three elections were seriously rigged. There was no election. There is no opposition in the parliament. No dissent is allowed, plain and simple. She did away with the caretaker government of system, which was a very trusted form of elections in Bangladesh, unique to Bangladesh, because we needed it. Unlike India, where your election process enjoys public trust, our don't at the moment. And Sheikh Hasina created that situation. And as a result, we had a total decay of democracy in Bangladesh. So she's not elected. I mean, it was a stolen election for the last three elections. Number one. Number two, that the sense of being dismissive to anything, any genuine, crisis or anything, when the students first wanted reform of the quota system. Now you can see footage of how the police beating up people.
Yes.
This has led to this. Now, as far as history of Bangladesh-India relationship goes, and I am a former military man myself, I have served in the army for 8 years and then served as a diplomat for 32 years. I am a freedom fighter. I fought in the War of Liberation. I know the ethos that drives our people. We are a fundamentally non-communal, non-fundamental society. This is very deep-rooted in our society. Jamaat-e-Islami never won more than 3% of votes in Bangladesh.
No, but we have seen temples being targeted. We've seen Hindus being killed in Bangladesh.
If you had allowed democratic process to continue uninterrupted, then you would see a much, not only a developed Bangladesh, but a developed democratic Bangladesh. So what we had is a developed Bangladesh, but developed undemocratic Bangladesh. And this
Fair
is where
enough, but
the
is there an
problem
apprehension?
We hope.
Let me bring in Ambassador Trigoniyat on the point. Is there an apprehension that Jamaat and fundamentalists and radical elements could now ride piggyback on popular unrest and student movement, and could that spell trouble for India?
Well, firstly, it is so good to hear from Ambassador Chaudhary and General Dhillon. Fact is that he knows Bangladesh much better, although I have served in Bangladesh and I have seen at the time when we had a government which was inimical to India's interest, General Irshad's time. And so there are these governments come and go. There were earlier also, the Jamaat Islami has been operating there. Pakistani ISI, their influence has been there. China's influence has increased. And even during Sheikh Hasina's time, she has been balancing the interest, trying to take projects and money from both sides and doing it. So there's nothing wrong. I mean, this is the model that we'll have to deal with in our neighborhood. This is going to be there. So I don't see and not really particularly bothered about the China-Pak nexus going there. But my worry right now is that what happens next with democracy versus military. That is the thing that the country today is facing. And I think that is going to be a decisive factor. If the army wishes to continue beyond a point for whatever reason, because of law and order, because of other issues, then we are in for a very different kind of a development in the country. Mostly Bangladeshis will not approve of it. And so therefore, you are looking at a longish, difficult period. On the other hand, if somehow the situation now settles down because people's main demand was removal and resignation of the Sheikh Hasina, which has happened, I think it should calm down the frayed nerves for some time. And there are all these factors that my other co-panelists have mentioned very much prevailed during this, the way the protests were handled, the way the elections happened, the way the opposition has been working, the way the foreign countries have operated. The United States, for one, has been there, which is there. China has been there. Pakistan is there. So there have been interventions by foreign countries as well. But one thing I would like to tell you is that irrespective of the fact whatever happens, the relations with India will continue to be there. There will be a slight blips here and there. Overall, the people of Bangladesh understand we have a cultural connect with Bangladesh, which no other country has. So I think that this is something.
Ambassador Chaudhary, two aspects that were raised by your friends in India, General Dhillon and Ambassador Anil Trigoniyat, were one, foreign influence, the games played by the United States, the games played by China. Many commentators are also talking about the role of social media platforms and technology giants, from TikTok to Snapchat to other social media platforms. Would you like to weigh in on this outside interference?
You see, these kind of players, as you say, social media, foreign players, etc., can exploit a given situation. But the situation was created by the mishandling of the government itself. I mean, if the government had reacted more accommodatively to the students' demand for reforms of the quota system, none of this would have happened. I mean, the Prime Minister should have called them immediately and talked to them. But by then, police had started killing young students, unarmed students, women were beaten. All kind of rash things were done by the police, and the police are very strong, very politicized. Also, the student league, the Chhatra League, which is the student wing of the Awami League, they were given protection by the police to beat up the protesters. So, if this situation happens, that's when those players whom I, as a freedom fighter, don't want to see get involved in Bangladesh, they will take advantage of it. But look, this is not the end of the journey. This is part of the journey. What will happen is we hope that we'll come out of it in a more democratic form where we'll have stable relationship, where starting with our very birth, where India's role was very, very critical, would be recognized and would play a role. We are bound by history and geography, not just by culture, but bound by history and geography. But for that, India also has to act with everybody without, finding an enemy behind every tree. If India works like Indian democracy works very well in India, India should also encourage the working of functioning democracy in Bangladesh. and not put all their eggs in one basket. I understand that Sheikh Hasina provided greater comfort to Delhi, undoubtedly. And that's why Delhi was happy with her, which is also understandable. I have written this in a book called 50 Years of Bangladesh-India Relationship, but I said the BNP government made many mistakes in dealing with our issues with India. And
because in case ISI is encouraged in Bangladesh, that's a cause for concern for India. If Hindus are being massacred, I'm sure you would find that to be a cause for great concern for a good country like Bangladesh yourself, Ambassador. But let me bring in General
I have not had any report in our media or with my friends, Hindu friends. I've just spoken to a former minister who was a Hindu, and some others also. They're all feeling quite safe here. Mind you, in this police repression, many Hindu students were beaten mercilessly. Hindu children were also died from police firing. So when you are tagging only one political force with being communal, I mean, this is Sheikh Hasina's government's police which fired at a Hindu family and killed Hindu children. So this is an event, not a pattern. We are basically inherently non-communal. Bangladesh has been
Sheikh Hasina's house ransacked, party leaders targeted. There are some reports, of some attempted lynchings or lynchings. We'll wait for more verification on that front. But is there an apprehension that the Jamaat, the ISI, they could start playing a bigger role, forces that are inimical to India? Or as Ambassador Chaudhry says, that India should not look for an enemy behind every tree?
See, what happens is, Pakistan per se will not leave any chance of trying to disrupt or disturb India's internal peace. And here the stage is set for it to play. Jamaat-e-Islami has an influence. Jamaat-e-Islami has infiltrated this agitation, so-called student agitation. And Pakistan ISI is very close to Jamaat-e-Islami. We all know that. Now, where I have another concern is, India wants stable neighborhood that's in best interest of both the countries. Bangladesh was progressing very well with a lot of multinational corporations coming and establishing their businesses in Bangladesh, may it be shoe industry, may it be clothes, apparels and other things. And they were supplying these items to areas around in the Southeast Asia and Indian subcontinent. Now with this type of disturbances and this type of mobocracy which has been seen today, how much of those MNCs will get benefited or the confidence to continue to do business in Bangladesh? Bangladesh economy was developing well. I think that is a concern. When the economy doesn't go well, then this mobocracy will increase. Then this instability will increase. And we all know it. When there is an unstable playing ground, the worst players come and play in those areas. And the worst players in the subcontinent are Jamaat-e-Islami, ISI, Pakistan. Period.
Okay, Ambassador Trigonayat, mobocracy on the streets, you have mobs on the streets, and you have the army that's calling for an interim government minus Sheikh Hasina's party. What do you see happen in Bangladesh over the next several days and weeks, sir?
Well, I think that the first thing for them is to see to it that the students go back to the university, the people go to their homes, and there is calm on the streets. I think that is the first job of the army, as well as the interim government should be there, so that the normal administration continues in the country. Second is they will have to see that there are free and fair elections that are held within a stipulated time frame. And thirdly, we hope that the army generals don't have ambitions beyond this, and they would like to return the power back to the people. Because if that does not happen, seeing Bangladesh's history and the people's character, they are not going to tolerate it. And so that's why there is going to be a certain element of instability. We don't want that. We want a strong Bangladesh. We want a stable Bangladesh and all of our neighborhood for that matter, including Pakistan. But at the moment, it is difficult to say which way things will move, because as of now, as of this minute, we don't say things are moving down. Of course, the major demand for the people has been met with the removal of Sheikh Hasina.
So we reported the Arab Spring. Are we seeing a Bangla Spring right now? And will it lead to stability or more chaos? We'll be tracking that story very, very closely. Ambassador Chaudhary, Ambassador Trigonath and General Dhillon, as always, many thanks for joining me. The situation does remain on the edge in Bangladesh. Will it now stabilize or take a turn for the worse? We'll be reporting that story.